Most of you think you need more leads to scale to 6 figures or multiple 6 figures per month, but what you don't realize is that you already have enough leads, but what you don't have is a conversion process strong enough to convert your leads into 6 figures or multiple 6 figures per month. That is not a marketing problem, that is a management problem. And it must be your lucky day, because that's exactly what I'm going to be going over in this video. My name is Alex Garov, and I'm the owner of Maximize Setting, where we help info businesses scale to 6 figures or multiple 6 figures per month through management and consulting, specifically on the sales process and conversion side of businesses, where in doing that, we've helped businesses scale from 109K to 408K in just 30 days. We've helped businesses go from 47K to 154K in 58 days, 44K to 149K in just 60 days. And we've also scaled 15 plus offers past 70K per month. As you can see, a couple big names that we've worked with in the past. And you can see a bunch of 22K days, 25K days, 27K days, clients buying McLarens. So there is a lot of results and experience that is backing this video. And what I'm going to be covering is the 4 phases of management that I've almost uncovered after generating all of these results for our clients. And I've really simplified it here so that you guys can fix that management problem that I mentioned at the start of the video. Now, the first phase is the foundational phase, where you basically set up everything, you hire your team. Second phase is fixing the A+ problem, which is the one metric where if you fix this problem, it will basically be the biggest unlock of revenue within your business. We then go into your stability phase, which is where you get your entire sales process within KPI. And then eventually scalability is where you do stress tests on the process you've built and then hit record months after that. And the thing you need to understand is that all of these phases build on each other, which means you need to watch the video to the end. And I'm not just saying that because it's a YouTube best practice. You genuinely need to understand how they build on each other to be able to execute them correctly. Going into the first phase, which is foundations, I'm going to assume that you guys are already at like 50K per month-ish, which means you probably already have one setter per 50 leads. So maybe you already have 1 to 3 setters on your team, and you've already proven the setting and sales process yourself by doing the setting yourself, for example. Now, I'm also going to assume that you have a good amount of systems in place, like you are tracking everything that you need to be tracking, from your setters conversion to your show rate, your close rate, your average order value. I'm assuming that you have revenue and commission trackers. I'm assuming that you have Notion dashboards that host all of their SOPs, and that you have a Slack and Discord, just a centralized team communication system with all of the automations built out, right? I'm assuming you're a 50K per month business that has all of these things in place and you're ready to really take the business to the next level. Now, I do want to give you guys a little bit of a reality check that will really set up the team and the foundations of the team that we'll need later on as we progress through these phases. The reality check is that your team does not care about your business and how much money the business makes, right? The only thing that they care about is how much money they can make and them progressing their career and the skills that they can learn and the connections they can make to progress their career. That is the only thing that they care about, which means you as the business owner, you as the manager need to be able to use that to your advantage. The way you do that is by getting complete clarity on their goals so that you can align all of their KPIs in their best interest for them to hit the goals that they are on your team to hit, right? What I mean is you need to ask them these 3 questions. What do they want to transition to after setting? Is it becoming a closer? Is it becoming a setter manager? Whatever it is. The second one is how long until they want to make that transition. The third one is then what income goal do they want to hit until they want to make that transition, and why do they want that income goal? It is very, very important that you ask the why. A lot of you guys will set KPIs to their like professional goals. Oh, do 100 follow-ups a day so that you can make 5K per month. That's not very powerful. Whereas if you understand that they want to make 5K per month so that they can help their parents with bills or move out into a better apartment or repair their car, whatever it is, you now associate those 100 follow-ups and you connect the 100 follow-ups and every other KPI that they have to their personal goal and not just their professional goal. This is very, very important, and you doing this and getting this tie down will allow your team to not only stay on your team and not churn, and be incentivized to handle all the pressure and the stress that will come in as you start progressing through these different phases that I'm about to go through. And then while all of this is happening, your business is always hitting record months because their KPIs are created by reverse engineering what the business's goal is. So that's the foundational phase where you have one setup per 50 leads, you have all of these systems in place, and you've understood their goals completely, and now everything is positioned in your setter's best interest. We then move on to phase 2, which is the A+ problem. The A+ problem is the single metric that, if improved, will have the biggest impact on you making more money. Almost look at this as a massive cash injection that you can implement within your business. So the first thing you're going to do is run the 7 out of 10 test, where you've taken your 4 main metrics from your sales process, which is your new convert qualify call percentage, which is basically your setter's conversion rate, your show rate, your close rate, and then your average order value or your average cash collected per close, whatever you want to say. And you've then given them a rating out of 10. In most cases, if you do this correctly, you will clearly see that one of them is clearly the A+ problem and is definitely the bottleneck within your sales process and by proxy your entire business, right? Because everything that's a 7 or above is within KPI. Everything that's a 6 and below is not within KPI, but you'll definitely have one that is very, very much below KPI, right? So that is your A+ problem. And now, like, to make it easier for you, these are basically industry standards. So like setters conversion 5 to 10% on qualified calls, show rate is 70%, close rate 30%, average order value 35% of the price point, right? Now, like, under our management and our portfolio, the conversion rate that we have on average across all of the clients that we manage is 22%. We even have a client that has a 64%, which is crazy. I've never seen that before. Show rate across our portfolio is 82, close rate is 56, and then our average order value across the portfolio is 67% of the price point. Now, I don't say this to brag or anything, I just say this so that you can realize that industry standard doesn't mean that that's the highest possible level. There's definitely much higher levels, especially with conversion, that you can get to, which is pretty crazy that we can like convert 1 out of every 2 leads into a qualified call for this team, right? Now, that's basically how you'll figure out what the A+ problem is, but you don't want to just rely on data. Obviously, data is like your biggest tool that you have as a manager and a business owner, but you also then want to talk to your team and go a layer deeper and like ask them, hey, what do you think the biggest bottleneck in the business is? And get their opinion, right? Because then you're able to confirm that that actually is the bottleneck. Now, once you've established that, let's say your setters conversion or your show rate, whatever, is your A+ problem, that's when you want to review the process that is responsible for causing that bottleneck or for causing that metric to be what it is. Once you've done that, you then want to take a step back and understand the nature of why that bottleneck occurs in the first place. What I mean by that is my philosophy on like moving leads further in the sales process is down to 2 things. It's down to building trust with them, and then it's building incentive. Incentive is the reason as to why people take action. So running towards pleasure, running away from pain, and like asking questions that probe into both of those things, and then building trust through relatability, making them realize that you actually understand them and you've helped other people in their situation achieve the goal that they want to achieve. So when it comes to fixing bottlenecks, you obviously have your trust and you have your incentive. No matter where the bottleneck is, whether it's low new convos, low proposed calls, low booked calls, low qualified calls booked, low show rate, low close rate, or low average order value, you need to understand, no matter which of these 6 or 7 bottlenecks it is, whether you need to increase the amount of incentive that's created within that part of the process or increase the amount of trust, or both, to then fix the bottleneck. That's really all it is. And if you look at fixing A+ problems and all bottlenecks through this lens, where you're either increasing trust or increasing incentive or both, it will make your life a lot easier, because I know a lot of you struggle to like, I don't think you guys struggle to find what the bottleneck is, but I do think you guys struggle with coming up with solutions to fix the bottleneck. So if you always view it from the lens of increasing incentive or increasing trust, it just gives you more of a structured thought process to run your ideas and thoughts through when it comes to fixing bottlenecks. And then the big thing that needs to be stressed is, because this metric, for example, is a 2 out of 10, if you get it to a 7 out of 10, that is why it has the biggest impact on revenue, and it basically acts as a cash injection. is because if you increase something that's a 6 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, it's really not going to do much. It's going to add an extra 5K per month. Whereas if you increase it from a 2 to a 7 or a 2 to a 9, whatever, then you're talking about numbers like an extra, you've seen the case studies, like an extra 107K per month or 301K per month, like the first team that I showed you. Real quick, because we just went over how to find your A+ problem, if you want me to do this with you, I offer a free sales process audit where I'll look through all the data within your business and give you complete clarity on what your A+ problem is and all the solutions you need to implement to fix it. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't a sales call. I will only walk you through what our services look like if you ask me to. So worst case scenario, you'll just have complete clarity on what your A+ problem is, all the solutions you need to implement to fix it. You can then take that information, go make a bunch of money, hit record months, and then potentially come back to us in the future. If this sounds like something that you'd be interested in, book a call below in the first link in the description. Now let's get back to the video. So that is your A+ problem. We will then move on to phase 3, which is all about creating stability within the process you've now built. So as you can see up here, imagine that you've gotten this metric from a 2 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10. You probably might still have other metrics that aren't like an A+ problem. They're not a 2 out of 10, but they're still not within KPI. The first step of the stability phase is to get every single metric within KPI so that your graph or your sales process basically looks something like this. And when fixing the other bottlenecks, you want to take the same approach where you figure out what it is, and then you look at that part of the process that's responsible for that metric and then say, okay, do I need to increase trust? Do I need to increase incentive? What are ways that I can do that? Let me implement it and then give it a week, give it 2 weeks. Don't give it 2 days because it's not going to get fixed in 2 days. You need to be patient. Give it a week, 2 weeks. Continue looking at the data. Okay, it increases. Now it's a 7. Now it's an 8 out of 10. Bam. You now have a sales process that's within KPI. After you've got everything above a 7 out of 10, you then want to look at more logistical bottlenecks that could come up as you try to start scaling. The first thing is improving your lead qualification process. If right now maybe you're closing or you have a closer and you're sometimes iffy or your closer's iffy about the lead quality and like how qualified people are, and sometimes the setter doesn't communicate things, this is the time to fix all of these like annoying logistical headaches. Because if you just say, oh, it's annoying, I'm not going to fix it now, when you get into phase 4 and you try to scale, everything's going to break. Trust me, right? So this is the time for you to fix that. This is the time for you to look at your setter's workflow and make sure that there's a prioritization system in place and he's not just waking up and doing random tasks with no order. You then also want to tighten up the setter and closer's communication so that they're talking to each other every single hour, every single day. And then you want to tighten up the setter's communication to the manager as well as the closer's communication to the manager. In this case, the manager might be you. If you have an internal manager, then it will be to him. The last step of the stability phase is reconfirming the 3 questions that we mentioned earlier in the foundational phase. You want to now go back to your setters and ask them these 3 questions again and make sure maybe something's changed. And now you need that updated information to make sure that you can still align all the KPIs and everything that they're about to do to really scale the business in phase 4. You need to make sure that everything is still positioned within their best interest, right? So you get the sales process within KPI by fixing the other like small little bottlenecks. You tighten up all the logistical things that could come up to make the business and sales process more efficient. And then you reconfirm their goals to make sure that you're still able to position everything in your team's best interest. Moving on to everyone's favorite phase, mine included, is the scalability phase. Now that you have your entire sales process within KPI, you've got your logistics dialed in and your team is completely ready and everything's positioned in their best interest, this is where you now want to stress test your entire process and your team before you then look to hit record months. What I mean is that you will perform a scalability test where it's a very simple test where you'll ask yourself if each of these metrics, your leads, your booked calls, your calls taken, and your closes, 10x overnight, which would break first and which would cause the biggest A+ problem in your sales process. The reason you need to do the scalability test before you look at hitting record months is because if you don't do this, what's going to happen is you're going to try to increase lead flow or open up a different acquisition channel or whatever to hit your record month, and you're just going to cause another A+ problem. And now you need to go back up to phase 2 and start the entire process again from phase 2. Very, very important that you do the scalability test. So, like I said, you're going to ask yourself, if each of these metrics 10x overnight, which of them is most likely to cause an A+ problem? So if you had 10x the amount of leads, the thing that will be affected the most is your setter speed to lead, the quality of conversations, because now they're skipping questions to try to get through all of the leads, and then their workload, because there's so many leads. With 10x booked calls, it's going to be the post-booking quality and then your show rate, because there's so many more calls on the calendar to where they can't handle all of the post-booking that they have to do, as well as speed to lead for new leads because they're now handling the post-booking process. If you have 10x the amount of calls taken, this is where either you are currently closing, where now you don't have time for anything else that's higher leverage within the business. If you have your closer closing, he's now overworked and now you're wasting leads because he's never going to tell you that he's overworked because they're closers and they want to make as much money as possible. If you 10x the amount of closes, this is where you then have stress on your onboarding process. Your team could stop communicating as efficiently as they need to be, and your fulfillment team will definitely be constrained. This is why it's good for you to also do this test, because if you do this and you say, okay, calls taken is going to cause the biggest constraint within my business, you now know if you're currently closing, it means, okay, maybe it's time to hire my first closer. If you already have a closer, maybe it's time to hire another one. If it's 10x the amount of closers, it's the same thing. Oh, maybe I need to hire another CSM before I look to hit record months. So that's the big reason you want to be running this scalability test, right? Hiring ahead of time before hitting record months is a big, big thing that will allow you to scale as quickly as you've seen those other teams that I showed you at the start of the video scale, where it's like literally us adding 100 or 300K a month in just 30 to 60 days. We're not able to do that if we don't do these scalability tests before we really look to hit record months. Now, after you've done the scalability test, another very important step is building an exciting compensation plan for everyone in your team. Setters, closers, CSMs, account managers, whoever you have, to really incentivize them. Yes, you already have their goals and you've positioned things in their best interests, but obviously these people are on your team to make money. So you want to create an exciting compensation plan that has different levels, that is all tied to them making the business more money because it's tied to their KPIs. After you've got the compensation plan in place, this is where you really want to talk to the marketing team. And if you're the business owner that's managing a team, you want to not talk to yourself, but you get the point where you're really then going to focus on marketing to increase lead flow, because this is the way you need to think about it. You've now got a sales process that is fully within KPI. All of your sales metrics are 7 out of 10 or above. All of them are above industry standard. You're good to go. If you just increase lead flow and you've already done the scalability test and you've made the sets workflow more efficient, all of these type of things, you now have an increase in lead flow that is going through all of these different metrics that you know are within KPI. And if you do that, it's mathematically impossible for the business not to scale if you just keep increasing lead flow. And when I say increasing lead flow, I don't mean go from 100 leads a week to 1,000 overnight. I mean go from 100 to 125, then 150, and then you get the point. It needs to be a gradual process so that you can continue keeping your sales process within KPI. Otherwise, you will break something and cause more bottlenecks. And then a very good way to keep your entire sales team conscious of what the goal is and everything that they need to be doing on a daily basis is by including a pacing and projection system. That is, you taking your monthly goal of 100K a month, 200K, 300K, whatever it is, and then looking and reverse engineering the KPIs and the amount of closes needed based on your average order value. Because if you say the goal is 150K and your average order value is this much, that means you need this many closes. And you need this many closes, that means you need to take this many calls. And because you need that many calls taken, you then can calculate how many calls need to be booked because you have your show rate. And then you can calculate how many leads you need for this many calls to be booked because you have your setters conversion. When you then reverse engineer all of these numbers, you can then break them down onto a monthly, weekly, and daily basis, and these now become the KPIs. And then every single Monday, you lay out that week's projections so that everyone is clear on the KPIs that they need to hit. And then on Friday, you sit down and you review the week and say, did we hit our projection? Yes, let's double down and keep doing that. No, what metric did we not hit that we need to improve on next week, and how can we hedge it so that we still, by the end of the month, are on track for our goal. And then the last little note that I'll give you is that communication between the sales team and the marketing team in this phase of the business is crucial. The quicker they communicate, I know maybe they don't like each other because it's a sales team and a marketing team, right? But you need to make them communicate as much as possible. You need to teach the sales team how to communicate to the marketing team in the language that they understand, and then vice versa. Now, those are the 4 phases of management. You build your foundations, you then figure out your A+ problem and you fix it, which genuinely gives you a big cash injection, and you'll probably hit a record month just off of that. You then get your entire sales process within KPI, and then you really look to scale, you do the scalability tests, and you hit record months after that. Now, one thing that I do want to extend to you guys is a free sales process audit. Now, this isn't a sales call. I'm not going to be pitching you anything. However, a good amount of people do ask me to pitch them at the end of the call because they've seen the amount of value that I can provide for them, where they either ask me to pitch them on our done for you management, where we come in and we manage the team completely for you and we execute all of these 4 steps for you and we get you to record months, or they then ask me to pitch them the hybrid program, which is more consulting, where I'm then either training your manager or I'm training you how to execute all 4 of these phases of management so that you can scale the business. Now, worst case scenario, you book the call, you get on a call with me personally, I give you the full game plan, I tell you what your A+ problem is, what you need to do to fix it, and everything else that you need to execute these 4 phases, and then you go, you implement them, you make a bunch of money, and then maybe you come back in the future. So if that sounds like something you want to take advantage of, go down in the description, book in a call, and then I'll see you there.